Hello, my name is Chloe Noller, and I'm with Mark Vandegrift on the Beyond the Bubble podcast. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Well, I'd love to just jump in and ask you, who are you, what do you do, and how did you get to Hillsdale?
Okay, well, I am the president and CEO of Innis Maggiore. We're an ad agency in Canton, Ohio. And I ended up at Hillsdale because of my father, who happened to have a colleague who was with the Foundation for Economic Education. And I'm not sure if many Hillsdale students remember that organization or not, but given the alignment with the values that Hillsdale has, he recommended to my father that I look into Hillsdale. So it was a come here, see it, and I was hooked. So that's how I ended up here. I was here from 1988 to December of 1991. I'm with the class of 92.
What did you major in? What were you involved with on campus?
So I did a lot with music. I was in the orchestra, the band, the choir. I did a lot with private lessons, both percussion, voice, and piano. And so I was with Phi Mu Alpha quite a bit. And then in terms of studies, I majored in accounting and German. So Dr. Geyer, who just retired a couple years ago, was one of my professors, and my daughter was able to also have Dr. Geyer. And it was really neat that we overlapped that way. And then I was in quite a few student organizations. We did the Mock UN, was one of those. I was involved with Ivy Christian Fellowship quite a bit. And so anything and everything. I love sports. So any intramural that I could be involved with, I did that too. So a lot of different things. And then there was community service that was afforded. I don't even remember the organization that was here on campus, but they always posted ways to get involved. And so we did different service projects throughout those years that I was here.
That's fantastic. Sounds like a very full career.
It was.
In Hillsdale. That's wonderful. So can you tell us your story about how you got to where you are now? Post-graduation, what did you do, and how did you end up as a CEO?
So I graduated in December of 91, immediately went to Columbus, Ohio, and I was with KPMG. It was known as KPMG Pete Marwick back then, one of the big six. It was six back then in the accounting world. And I worked there for about a year and just found that the work was great, but the atmosphere, the culture, the big corporation wasn't a fit for me. When it really hit me was when I was at a review. It was about 6 months in, and I was being reviewed, and every audit that I had been on, I got really glowing marks. And then the gentleman that was reviewing me goes, but there's this one audit that just, I don't know what was going on. And he goes through this whole thing saying how bad I was. And I said, I was never on that audit. I didn't even know we had that client. And so what that meant to me was it was a very impersonal corporate world that I was in. And even asking, hey, can I have that removed from my record or anything? He was like, well, I'll have to see. We don't typically have this issue. So at that point in time, I also was very involved with the church in Columbus and decided that I thought it would be a good time to go out to seminary. Kind of felt God's calling in my life that way. So I was out at Grace Seminary in Winona Lake, Indiana, not too far south from here. And I spent 2.5 years there and was almost ready to go into my internship. And my brother asked me to come back and help manage his company. He was in the golf business, and with my accounting background and some of the other leadership I had, it seemed to make sense. And I was able to marry that with my seminary work that I had done. And ever since that point, I've taught within the church. So I kind of got to do both things, and it was really neat to be able to work with my brother. So that was, I'm only getting you up to 97, but then I went to work for a company called Monarch Creative Design, and we were a graphic design studio, and we were doing all the work, the creative work for Innis Maggiore. So the owner of Innis Maggiore decided to merge with us, and we were acquired. And at that point in time, that was 98, and I've been there ever since. And I've held almost every position within the company. And when he wanted to retire, he identified me as the person he thought would do a good job taking over his company, which last year was our 50th year in business. He founded it when he was 19.
Wow.
So he was there that entire 50 years. And it was just neat to see the way that he led me through that transition, and just did a really good job making sure that the company would be there for another 50 years if that's the way it works out. So that was in 2023, in January of 23. So this is my third year as the president and CEO.
Wow.
Tried to make that as quick as I could.
Wow. Take us through a day. What does it look like to be a CEO? Describe, what your day looks like, what your responsibilities entail as the CEO.
Most of the time, every day is a different day. If you're in the ad agency business, one of the things you will never be is bored, because every day brings new challenges from different clients. We have over 150 active clients at any given time. So one email that I get can change my whole day. I always tell my wife, she's like, "What'd you do today?" And I said, "Nothing I thought I was going to do," because you walk in and you think you're going to do something, and then work just starts and you do what's necessary. It's constant reprioritization. There's individuals that need direction within our organization, so I help them. Clients call, they need assistance. Accounting calls, they need me to touch base with a client who's not paying their bill. Whatever it may be, that would be what a typical day is, meaning there's no typical day. But I do handle some of our clients still that I handled prior to owning the company. And those are some of our largest clients. They're ones where there's direct interaction with the CEO or the upper management, and they just prefer a relationship where they're also dealing with someone that is at that level. And with my history on strategy, positioning strategy, we are America's #1 positioning ad agency. And part of that means that everything we do has a foundation of positioning behind it. And when you have a lot of young people, they aren't experienced in that yet. So I do a lot of positioning education. In fact, that's why I'm here this weekend, or this beginning of this week, is I'm actually teaching a class tomorrow, and I'm presenting this evening to the Keo Entrepreneurship Group.
This sounds like you do a lot of things. You wear a lot of hats all the time as the CEO. So how did your education help that? I mean, you majored in accounting and German, and then you went to seminary as well. So how have you seen all of those degrees and all that education help you in the role you are in today?
Well, the thing about Hillsdale is they don't teach you what to think. They teach you how to think. I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times. And I feel like no matter what industry, what position that I would have ever selected or God selected for me, I would have been able to do a fairly decent job. Only because hard work and knowing how to think are the two qualities that anybody can survive with in this world. And that has served me extremely well. Now, the accounting background has been great because now that I'm a business owner, I can interpret balance sheets and income statements and understand taxes. And yet, on the complete opposite side of the brain, I'm in the creative world with marketing. And there's a balance there that I think Hillsdale teaches that you don't get in most places. Being able to be in the arts, being able to be in sports, being able to be in a lot of different activities that is combined with an excellence in education. And you just don't find that too many places.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's a good balance. It's almost what like liberal arts is for.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that you've done a lot of volunteering work and philanthropy with arts organizations and charities. So how do you make that work with your line of work, and how does that bring you fulfillment?
Well, I think it's incumbent on business leaders to give back to the community, because the community really is what supports businesses, right? But going beyond that, just my background as a believer, I believe that we need to help other people that need assistance. We do a lot of different things within our community, whether it be life needs or education or even granting wishes to kids with life-threatening illnesses. That's one of our big, I would say, charities that we support at Innis Maggiore. And all of those are just different ways that we can reach out to the community, be a good community partner, and make the community stronger. Because when you make a strong community, you have a really good talent pool of people to draw from that then helps your organization. So you're not doing it because of that. You're doing it because you want a strong community and you want to just be a great place to live, work, and worship. And so that it's kind of incumbent that we give back in that way.
Yeah. So your company, I mean, is nationally,
Yes.
It's nationally ranked. So you deal with clients all over the United States.
Cool.
So how do you help both your community where, it's located, but also across the United States as well?
We tend to get calls all the time, in fact, daily, not just from community organizations, but from our clients who are doing things in their community. A good example of that is one of our clients is Goodwill of Eastern North Carolina. So we're in Canton, Ohio. This is down in North Carolina on the eastern side. And they have different fundraisers and they have different initiatives and galas and all that. So if they call up, whether we can be there or not, we're going to give funds to help them out, whether it's sponsoring a golf outing or sponsoring a gala, whatever it may be. So there's ways that you can help other communities even if you don't have a presence there. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be the way that we help out. And when a client calls and says, hey, we need X dollars for this, guess what? We're going to pony up on that because that's just the right thing to do.
So you've had a crazy story to get here. You went to seminary and then merged with your brother and then merged with Innis Maggiore. So what would your advice be to students who are looking to maybe get into accounting or marketing or graphic design, things that you have a hand in daily? What would your advice be to students, even especially at Hillsdale?
Yeah, at Hillsdale, because you have so many capabilities with every student, follow your passion. Because if you don't get up every day and love what you do, then just stay in bed, honestly. There are so many new ways to work in the world today with careers that didn't exist when I was in school or even 10 years ago. Things like SEO or digital marketing, all of those are new in the world that had I set a course back when I was in college and said, I'm sticking to this course and never changing what I'm doing, I would have missed out on a lot of different things. Having held all the different positions I have within the agency was one of the benefits to now being the leader to say, oh, I have perspective on this, and I have perspective on that, and I have perspective on this particular item. And that varies every day. New things come out regularly. And if you aren't staying in tune by being a self-educator, then you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. And so what I would say to anybody that's maybe in the accounting field, if accounting's your thing and you're passionate about it and you find a good organization, run with it. We need accountants. If you're in marketing, run with it. It's great. It's a wonderful creative environment. And there aren't too many people I've ever met in marketing that don't have a smile on their face, right? But marketing means a lot of different things. So you can still find a passion within marketing and not just have a general marketing expertise, right? You could say, oh, I love graphic design, so that's where I'm going to focus. We have a full web development shop. So maybe you love building websites. Maybe you love programming mobile apps, whatever it may be. Chase that if that's your passion, because there's probably a great career in it. So that, I guess, would be my advice for any student. Don't close any door, be self-educating, and run toward your passion. Makes sense.
What mistakes do you think people entering your line of work tend to make? So even if they're aspiring to become a CEO of a company, of a major corporation, what are things that you're like, that everyone does it and you shouldn't do that?
Well, first off, marketing's tough. If I said to another business owner, are you doing your own legal work? They would go, no, we hire a lawyer for that. And then I would say, do you do your own accounting work, like auditing and stuff? No, we hire an accountant for that. But if I say, do you do your own marketing? Oh, yeah, that's easy. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a trap that people fall into because there is an expertise in marketing. People assume because they are a consumer of marketing that they automatically know how to market. Well, that's like saying, I'm a car because I stand in the garage, right? It doesn't have any logical sense to it, but that's what people do in marketing. And so don't just blindly go into the marketing field and think that all marketing is the same. We have 32 individuals at our organization, and every one of them plays a specialist role, and they have to be really, really good at what they do. I would never ask a web developer to come to our graphic design group and do any graphic designing. That would be catastrophic, right? I would never ask a graphic designer to go back and do search engine optimization or paid search or programmatic or any of those, because unless they're trained, they don't know that. So in terms of the marketing world, what I would say is make sure you realize it's a bigger world than what most people think. It's not just this label that you put on someone that thinks, oh, well, I do graphic design, so now I'm a marketer. I haven't even mentioned the strategy part of it. And that in itself is a science and an art. A lot of psychology in there too, which is kind of fun.
You talked about continuing education and continuing to learn to stay on the cutting edge of things. How do you do that? And do you have any tips and recommendations for people to continue staying educated in the marketing world, graphic design, that kind of thing?
I would say consume everything you can in the way that you like to consume things. So I'm a huge reader, and it doesn't matter whether I'm reading theological books for teaching at church or reading something marketing-wise. And I go back to the greats like Bill Birnbach, clear back into the early 1900s, because the principles of marketing, for the most part, haven't changed because the human mind hasn't changed. Now, there's ways that we reach them that have changed, but from the standpoint of the principles, you can go back and read the greats, and then you have to read the current stuff, because I've mentioned a few tactics like SEO and paid search. We didn't even have those 25 years ago. So you have to learn those if you really want to be great in the marketing field. So just however you consume, if it's getting on YouTube, if it's podcasting, if it's reading books, if it's learning from others and going to conferences and seminars, do it. You have all the opportunity in the world. There's no excuse in this day and age to not self-educate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everywhere. You have so many different opportunities to do it. If you're looking back at your career and your education, what's one thing that you wish you had known before going into what you do now?
I think knowing that the world was going to change as fast as it has. Because what happens sometimes is you get into this tunnel vision of what your life looks like. And so you kind of race toward things that may not even be there by the time you get there, which is kind of a weird paradigm. But with the change that's going on in the world, you just have to stay the course and don't rush life so much that it passes you by and you go, boy, I really wish I had done this or I had done that. I see a lot of people that end up with what I would call empty careers because they tried to make things happen. Hillsdale students are very A-type, I would say, for the most part. They like to make things happen. But sometimes you have to allow the Spirit to speak to you if you're a believer. Sometimes you have to allow others to speak into your life. Sometimes it's a parent. Sometimes it's a colleague. Sometimes it's just a friend. And there are times where if you just rush headlong into a decision and don't really contemplate it, you make that wrong decision. And it sets the course for a lifetime of what could be disappointment. And there's nowhere else you're going to find students than at Hillsdale who have the world in front of them. Literally, Hillsdale students can do anything. And you have to be careful about that. Just make sure that you take that time to quit rushing headlong towards something you think is going to be your destiny, and you rushed right past an opportunity that could have been golden for you. So I guess that's the thing, knowing that life changes very quickly, and make sure you take time to observe it. It's more than just being active all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great advice. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
This has been Chloe Noller and Mark Vandegrift on the Beyond the Bowl podcast for Career Services. Thanks for listening.
great books, great people, and great ideas. Knowledge of these things is critical to becoming a well-educated human being. That's why I'd like to tell you about an easy and enjoyable way for you to listen and learn whenever and wherever you want. And that's through the Hillsdale Dialogues. If you haven't heard about the Dialogues, once a week, Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn joins radio veteran Hugh Hewitt to discuss topics of enduring relevance. From time to time, they also talk about current events, but always with an eye toward more fundamental truths. And they want you to listen in, to join a conversation like no other. The Hillsdale Dialogues are posted every Friday on podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you get your audio.